experience, but you should know a little bit about what it is and why it matters. Even after the COVID-19 church lockdown, I still meet pastors and some elder boards who are terrified of live streaming their services because they believe church attendance will drop, and I'll deal with that fear later. I've met a horrifying number of leaders who have no clue how to maximize the creative team around them. This is your ticket to understanding the digital revolution and making it work for you. This is also a very personal perspective. This is my advice, written as if I was personally coaching you and your church or ministry, which is why it's about concepts, not the details. In other words, whether you lead a congregation of 20 or lead a church of 20,000, this information will help take your ministry to the next level. After all, technology changes, and many of the platforms, apps, and some techniques I mentioned in the book may be changed or even gone by the time you hear this. Likewise, how people consume media is constantly changing. Your team can keep up with the detailed changes, but as long as you understand the principles and purpose of sharing your story through the media, you can easily weather changes in the tools and platforms. One of the most frustrating things I see out there among churches and ministries is leaders who are afraid to explore these communication platforms because they simply don't understand how they work. And when we don't understand something, we often hesitate because we worry we'll look stupid in front of the congregation or the team. That's a big reason for this book. One of my great purposes in life is to help ministry leaders understand how to communicate in today's digital world well enough to be confident. Insecure leaders rarely take risks, even when those risks could have enormous benefits. And in my opinion, rarely has there been a more important time in history to take risks for the sake of the gospel. In our book, The Way Back, How Christians Blew Our Credibility and How We Get It Back, co-writer Jonathan Bach and I present the case that the reason Christianity is disappearing from our culture isn't because of bad marketing or branding, although we could do better there, but we simply aren't living the life God called us to live. We don't have a marketing problem. We have a Salesforce problem. Christians today simply don't believe in the product. But I also strongly believe that one of the challenges we face is that we don't communicate the story of the gospel well in today's digital culture. Other belief systems, lifestyles, organizations, movements, and cults are growing because they've mastered communicating in a digital age. But churches lag far behind, and to a great degree, because the leader lags behind. The speed of the boss is the speed of the team. Automotive executive Lee Iacocca. Think about it. As you hear this, according to a National Congregation study, there are roughly 384,000 churches in the United States alone, which means that all the other religions, causes, and advocacy groups combined don't even come close to that number. It's like being a part of a global organization with multiple local offices in nearly every town and city in the world. And yet many of those other and much smaller organizations are growing exponentially, while the influence of Christianity continues to shrink. A significant reason most of those other organizations are experiencing explosive growth is they simply have mastered the art of telling their story through media. They are part of a contemporary cultural conversation that has left much of the church behind. But what if the majority of pastors and leaders of our 384,000 churches could learn how to speak that language? What if every church in America had a voice sharing the gospel to their communities via social media, short videos, websites, television, and publishing? What if they understood the demographic changes so well they could immediately adapt their message to a shifting culture? The question is, what if they cared enough about reaching people in their communities that they were willing to learn? And for those who already know the language, were willing to improve. Hopefully, this book will help both groups of leaders. Why me? When I started working in media, a single video camera cost more than $250,000 and was so big that without a sturdy truck and large crew, it was impossible to take on location. At the time, I was a student working part-time on a crew producing prime-time television specials for the most watched religious TV program in America. In those days, there were only 3 TV channels, and the audience, even for religious programming, was massive. After graduating from college, I went to Hollywood for a year, but I was eventually drawn back to the world of Christian television. As a disclaimer, I must admit that I was getting married and needed a steady job. Since then, I've had forays into major secular advertising and commercial production, film projects, and other media opportunities, but my heart has always been focused on helping Christians engage today's culture more effectively through media. That means that during my career, I've been involved in some level at the growth of every media platform that has been used or is still being